It's Safi and Marco, dish out on the movies. And today we're doing another, quote, bad movie, end quote.
And today we have a special movie because, Safi, are you trying to...
Come on, Marco. Marco's giving me a problem.
Are you causing some sort of a special effect or sound effect where you're
Yeah, it's to introduce another bad movie.
It's like a theater thing where you're behind the curtain and you're and
Ooh, who's behind the curtain?
Your mom.
Another bad movie.
Okay, this movie is special because we can't say what it is. We can't say the name of the person who made it, because here's a little fun fact about the person who made this movie. Okay? Now, I originally discovered this person when a big review channel reviewed another one of her movies. That one was terrible too. And they did a review, and she took down their video because of quote-unquote copyright. And because they played a little bit of her music in the video to show, this is how bad her music is. It's almost even worse than the fucking films that she makes. Yeah. And then they put it back up and they took out the music, and she took it back down again. Oh. And then she took it back down again. And so basically, she's preventing them from putting up a video criticizing her movie because she's so... sensitive and she can't take criticism. Well, here's the thing. There's the one thing she can't block, Safi, which is the ratings people give her shitty ass films on IMDb. Yeah. And she's even deleted people's reviews on IMDb criticizing her movie. So she's a very, very unprofessional... I wouldn't even really call her a filmmaker, because the whole point of making films is that you release them so that people can critique them and then either like them or dislike them and have a discussion. But when you shut down that discussion, you're shutting down an entire aspect of making movies. So I wouldn't even, I wouldn't want to mention this bitch's name or the movie's name. Let's just call it a robbery Noel. A robbery Noel, okay? You guys find some synonyms for robbery and Noel, and then you'll figure out the title of this movie, okay? Because we don't want that bitch coming here and taking down our video because she's so scared of somebody honestly critiquing her movie. And now let's get started critiquing this shitty-ass movie. Safi, what'd you think of this shitty-ass movie?
Well, I didn't think there was much of a story. I guess the end of it was more of a story. In other words, they were hopping all around and dancing around and stealing things.
Yeah, they stole our time. That's one thing they stole.
I know. It kept reminding me of something I've seen, but part of it. And that was Grimm. And they had... one episode was about these kids who became of age in the Greek... what was it? Greek Christian church or something?
The one where they reached Greek puberty?
Yeah. And they would be little bad elves, and they would get into people's houses, and they would... But this was more about destruction. They were going through puberty, and after a certain time they wouldn't do it ever again. But they would come out at Christmas in the night, and they would go into people's house. They tear down their trees and rip off the lights and tear everything up that looked like Christmas. Well, these people didn't do that. What they like to do, and this happened in another Grimm episode, was they were like these bad kids. And I'm not evil bad where they would hurt somebody, but bad evil to where they were stealing. It was just all about stealing, and they would take people's Christmas presents. They would get into their houses and the Christmas presents that were all wrapped up. And they would all each take a few things for themselves, and of course we didn't see how much they took. They just didn't show that much. They just would show them unwrapping a couple of presents, and they would take anything. So it would be things that they thought and felt like, like an iPad,
Safi,
that kind of stuff.
How dare you?
And that's all that it was about, really.
How dare you?
And then,
how dare you?
Marco can talk about the rest.
How dare you compare this to a legitimate television show, Safi? This was not a legitimate movie. Even it wasn't even a movie. It was like a giant piece of shit. I mean, I don't even know what to call it. Like, what was this? Like, this was like a children's production.
Yeah, well, what happened was these kids, they were teenagers, and they would go around, they would steal the packages right out of the people's arms. They didn't go to their houses.
Safi, this isn't Grimm Review. This is
I know, I'm just telling you. I kept looking at it and think, this sure reminds me of something.
Well,
but then what happened was Krampus saw them, and Krampus...
Safi, why are you spoiling the episode for me?
Well, I'm just telling
you. You're ruining it.
That's what it reminded me of.
You've ruined it.
Almost until they got to this part.
You destroyed it.
Oh, please.
You obliterated it.
Don't be ridiculous. Well, like I said, the story really wasn't a story until about the end.
Yeah, that was what was surprising to me, was that I picked the shortest movie that I could find of hers, but it still wasn't a short. It wasn't an actual short film, but I purposefully picked the one that was the shortest because I knew how bad her production was, her production value. If you could even call it production value. Because in order to call it production value, you actually have to see some sort of value in the production. And I don't see any value in this production, this children's play. So the movie I purposefully picked the shortest one, but the surprising thing was, even though it was short, the whole, I would say first 45 minutes of the movie was just exposition leading up to the actual story in the last 20-something minutes.
And that's why I thought, this is kind of boring, because it's just like, what's this movie supposed to be about? I
was like, oh, I really picked a bad one this time. I really did it. And Safi was just sitting there. What was funny was, the first thing Safi said was, why is there so many fat women? What's up with all these fat women all over the place?
For that.
There's so many fat women in this movie. It's like an episode of The Biggest Loser.
Well, I don't want to say that.
Yeah, but it's true.
They were very heavy-set women, and they were wearing almost like what a mini dress is, the real mini ones where you can't even sit down. That's what they were.
Safi, do you think that what happened was
hopefully they were all wearing underwear.
Oh.
Well, sometimes it doesn't matter if you're fat or not. Some girls don't like to wear underwear.
Really? How would you know?
Because it talks... I've seen articles about it.
Oh, articles. Where were the articles, Safi?
Online.
Magazines?
Talking about fashion.
Magazines?
No, I don't really read magazines.
Was it a certain college roommate that is...
No, Marco! People weren't wearing those at that year. Okay, let's just keep moving on.
Let's just be honest here, Safi. Maybe they had a high budget. Maybe they had $100,000. But we all know that probably 90% of that budget was spent on getting the food for these fat women.
That's not right. That just isn't right.
They were probably
I never really saw them eating anyway. They were, one of them
especially
Safi was drinking.
One of them got really excited when she saw some pizza in a convenient, what's that thing called? Where the catering, there was a big aluminum foil catering container full of pizza. And you could tell that, that's the food that they got for the movie. crew and cast, if there was even a crew. Because Safi, what kind of a crew made this movie? I mean, who's responsible for this? Like fucking little Timmy and Jimmy in kindergarten class? Like, I mean, nobody who made this movie has obviously ever seen a film before, or ever even studied how to make a film before.
Well, that's the clue.
Because
how to make a film.
I didn't even see anything in the whole movie where it was like a legitimate attempt to make a film. Maybe it was just an excuse to get all these women fed. To get all these fat women some food.
Let's not do personal attacks.
Why?
Because it doesn't lend anything to our review to do personal attacks on people's looks.
Safi, you were the one who brought it up. The first thing you said
they were all
was, "What is it?"
Extra large women. But I guess the thing that drew me to it...
Emphasis on the extra.
Well, the thing is, what drew me to it is not just... There were two men, too.
And they weren't fat at all. No, they were skinny model-looking guys.
And even the bad person was skinny.
And you could tell that, like, okay, the person who made this is one of the fat women, and she got all the model men so that she could star alongside the model men and have them fondle her and fawn over her. And, you could tell. You could tell, Safi. You could tell.
The thing is, what drew you to any of them is what they wear as a disguise.
Safi.
They had these extra large glasses with sparkles. It was something like you've seen at New Year's. This is where I've seen these kind of glasses. And then...
I wasn't drawn to any of them, Safi, okay?
And basically that's what they were wearing, and they might be wearing these big leis, those big sparkly, fluffy necklaces.
It was like a bunch of mentally handicapped children went to Target and they all raided the holiday section and they were like, "Yay! Let's have a sleepover!" And then they got they just got everything they could find, like, "Ooh, there are these big glasses, ooh!" And they got all their shit and then they had their little sleepover poo and together. That's like what this movie was. It was like a bunch of retarded kids got together and raided Target, and they had a sleepover.
Really have to watch what you say.
Really? Well,
they were just stupid, and
I know they were stupid. They were fat and stupid. That's a terrible combination, Sophie.
Okay, never mind. Anyway, I don't see. Well, I don't see women nowadays. But I know they haven't because I've seen some advertising wearing these micro mini dresses. And the movie came out in 2019. And I don't think in 2019 they were wearing micro minis. I don't care who you were. And it just doesn't leave, especially when you sit down, it's a problem.
Safi, you should just be glad. You should just be... You should just be glad that these women wore anything, Safi, because, I mean, would you have liked to have seen the version where they weren't wearing anything, Safi?
Hopefully
I don't think so. I don't think so, Safi.
Well, hopefully they didn't do that.
I don't think anyone wants to see that unless they're chubby chasers.
Marco, I'll just be quiet, okay? I don't think that's right, but anyway.
You are a chubby chaser, Safi.
Right.
That's why that was the first thing that came. Like, Safi whenever she does commentary, her version of commentary is to just sit there and not commentate at all. And so the very first thing that came out of her mouth was, "What is it with all these fat women? What is it with them? What are they doing on here?" That was the very first thing you said, Safi.
Okay, Marco.
It was like being at the high school
I didn't know if that was
room.
part of the story or what.
It was part of the story.
I don't know, because there was no story.
That's the real reason.
The end.
That's the real reason they had to green screen them into the same car was, they couldn't organically fit in the same car together.
Oh, that's disgusting. That's just BS. Don't believe anything he says. If you can't do a legitimate review, And just if it's all about personal attacks, then don't do it at
they
all.
They green screened every single person in the same car. It's
Tell
just
people what that is.
people sitting in a car. What a fucking lazy ass filmmaker. What kind of a filmmaker green screens? And that means, guys, if you don't know what green screen is by now in 2022, it means that this person digitally added on the computer, added all these people in the same car. And let's be honest here, Safi. Do you think that she has the excuse that she didn't have the budget to put people in a fucking car and have them sit around in a car and shoot film in a car? What kind of lazy ass shit is that, Safi?
I don't know.
This biatch green screens everything.
But why?
She probably green screened the 400 extra pounds that she has off of herself so that she would look more like a leading lady. If you could even call her a leading lady. Because, Safi, her version of being a leading lady is pointing the camera about 1 inch from her face like she's taking a selfie, and then she almost fills up the entire screen. It's like, oh, we need to get a bigger screen to look at this movie. And then she's like doing this weird accent where it's like with that fucking woman from
Marco, why are you
Ozark.
Stop.
It's like that girl from Ozark in that Anna show where she's like doing the fake European accent. Like, that's what it was like. She was like, I am not American. And, ooh. It was so horrible. It was the worst accent I have ever heard in a movie. It's probably some of the worst acting I have ever seen.
Well, that's the thing. Is she British?
No.
Oh, okay. So she was faking a British accent.
Yeah, it was so terrible. Good. I saw this interview with her, and this interview, Safi, they rolled out the red carpet for this movie. But the real challenge was finding a red carpet big enough for the entire cast.
Okay. To me, that just isn't helpful. And I'm going to stop doing
You know what isn't helpful, Safi? An immature bitch who deletes people's reviews because they didn't like her shitty-ass movie.
We're not talking about that. You're just doing personal attacks.
Yeah, and get ready, because this channel is called Dish Out on the movies.
Well,
and get ready for us.
You don't have to be mean and do personal attacks.
Safi, this bitch needs to get bullied, okay?
Marco, what the hell?
She needs to get embarrassed for making this movie and rolling out the red carpet and thinking that she deserves the red carpet treatment for making this movie, Safi. I mean, isn't that insane? It's
hard to believe.
Are you serious?
I hope it isn't because she's a woman.
But they did an interview with her, and this guy said, so, what's the difference, man? What's the difference between you and your character in the movie? And she said, well, my character is British and I'm not. And she's also a little devious and a little kooky and a little crazy. And it's like, oh my God. This is a weird person, Safi. This is weird. She's devious. She's a thief. She's a criminal. She's a thug.
Well, yeah.
She's a deviant.
They would have. All you have to do to get a felony put on you is steal $50 worth of stuff.
Oh, they stole a lot more than that.
I mean, they sure did.
Their order at Buffalo Wild Wings was a lot more than $50 alone.
Yeah. So it wasn't just a little thieving. They stole. It just didn't look like much, because they just did it a little at a time. But
it was extra large thieving.
But they kept adding. And one of the guys, for some reason, he liked iPads or something. And they said, why do you want another iPad? You only have about 20 of them already.
He was the tech geek, and he was this guy. He was entertaining to. So let's get into this terrible trash.
Well, why don't we, instead of doing personal attacks?
Well, they deserve it.
No.
Except for like a couple of people
Well,
in the
our
movie.
listeners don't deserve it.
Oh,
How about that?
they love it, Safi. They love it. It's like an episode out of Married with Children in 2022. So, like, Safi, remember that?
Yes,
remember
I know
when
what Married with Children
Remember when
is.
those ugly fat women walked into Al Bundy's foot store,
No.
the shoe store, and he made fun of them?
No.
Oh, it was hilarious. So anyways, you have this crew of thieves, and they started off with this horribly long intro where it reminded me a lot of a 1960s heist movie I saw earlier this year, where that movie had a very long intro where it was like this colorful montage of like thieving and this the main woman, and she was she had blonde hair and she's like dancing around and all these colorful like pattern things, and it was a very, very creative and fun montage, and it was very surprising because I had never seen something like that, like in a film, where it was very long and I really liked it. But this was a bunch of green screen nonsense with the main characters like running around the screen, and you don't know really what they're doing. I guess they're stealing something, probably boxes of donuts from Krispy Kreme.
No, Marco. They were showing him they'd be like tiptoeing in front of a highly decorated Christmas house.
Yeah.
That was kind of one thing I liked about it. I liked the decorations.
Oh, I bet you did.
They just had a couple of them, probably 2 or 3, and they were houses that had been totally lit up from top to bottom, side to side. Real pretty, colorfully decorated houses, and they would see them one at a time. You'd see them one at a time tiptoeing, and each time they would have a different gift in their hand.
Safi, do you think they were the ones to decorate, or do you think they hired a bunch of skinny people to decorate for them?
What are you doing? They probably, it was just like they asked if they could film the house and the people because they'd done so much decorating and it took a lot of effort. They probably were more than happy to have their houses on the movie. They
probably made up some excuse like, "Sir, can we film your house? Because here's the thing about this movie. It's a very empowering film, and I am a black woman filmmaker, and it is a very important, strong movie. And can I please film your house? Because the white man won't let me film his house. So will you let me film your house for this empowering, life-changing movie?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, sure, I'm down with that." And little does he know, she's making some trash. And so then and her filming is so terrible. It was almost like she stood outside the house, filmed it really quickly, where she's like shaking it around. She can't even afford to get a stabilizer, a $30 stabilizer, and then that's it. Like, Safi, honestly, Amityville Karen was better than this.
Okay, Marco.
This is the worst bad movie we've reviewed so far. It was a legitimately bad movie. In every single way.
It was, and how many more do we have to watch?
I think like 3 or 4.
3 or 4?
Yeah. Having some fun.
Oh, God.
But they're going to be better than this, probably, Safi. But
I don't know.
It starts off, and you see that the movie is about this gang of thieves, and let's just talk about each one. Like, the main one was, of course, the fake British narcissist director, writer, music person, and we could tell that she's a narcissist because every time one of her songs would play, the first line of the song was her name. So, like, it would say, "Marco," and then it would start the song after that, and it's like, okay, that is some narcissism right there. And then there's this really cringeworthy scene where they're sitting in the car and they're like, "Oh my God, I love that woman's music. Oh my God, it's the greatest music I've ever heard. You can buy it right now on Amazon and iTunes and all those other places." And so it was literally like self-serving BS. In fact, I really legitimately think, because near the end of the movie she started advertising a shitty holiday song, I think that this whole movie was just a way to advertise her terrible music.
Maybe.
I think so. And so she was the first. What'd you think about her, Safi? She's awful. She sucks. She's the worst. She's an unprofessional. She's a hack. She can't handle criticism.
Well, I didn't know all that about the criticism. I was just looking at the movie.
Well, if you look at the movie, she'll delete your video, Safi.
Well, that isn't a way to build up your fan base.
Yeah,
So.
well, I hope she doesn't have a fan base, because she'll eat them all.
Oh, Marco. Oh, that's not good.
What'd you think of her, Safi? I mean, did you find her attractive?
I'm not worried about people being attractive in the movies.
Why? She points the camera right at her face the entire movie.
She was. She did have the camera right in her face. I just didn't know what the movie was about or who made it. And Marco was saying, well, she made it.
Yeah.
I'm like, who's she? And he would say, her.
That person.
And then I guess her sister was in it. And the sister, if it's who I think it is, she didn't have any teeth.
Yeah, she had the skinny sister, and actually we thought that her sister was the best actor in the film, or like the second or third best actor, and she was really the best one. And it was sad because she got kicked out. They kicked her out of the crew, and so we only got to see her for like 2 seconds.
Well,
She would have been perfect for like a horror movie, for like a cult movie. She could have been like a crazy cult girl in like Bad Times at the El Royale or something like that. She would have been perfect.
well, I just want to expound just a bit on her teeth because I can't unsee the image. It looked like she had ground her teeth, like, you know, when people grind their teeth, they make them put things in their mouths to keep them from grinding their teeth during the night. And they were ground down. It wasn't like she was a meth head or something and had 10 of them missing. Or I know one thing. I lost 2 teeth from eating ice. They tell you never to eat ice. I chewed on ice. It broke 2 of my teeth. So I stopped doing that. But it wasn't like, I mean, they were ground down to the nubs, and I'm like, is that part of her, like, costume?
That's called method acting, Safi. She wanted to prepare for this movie in every way she could.
Anybody could function like that because she had ground, whatever. She looked like she had ground down her teeth.
Robert De Niro did that. Robert De Niro did that for Cape Fear. What he did inside, this is really gross. He went to the dentist, and he told the dentist to file down his teeth so they look sharp.
Oh.
And so he did that for Cape Fear.
I didn't know that.
Ugh.
Ugh.
So, you know, hopefully this person didn't do that, because that would just like, ugh.
Well, she wouldn't be able to eat. And that's why she was probably on the low weight, if that's true. But I just don't know why. I've never seen that before. You've seen pictures of people who have been on, like meth, for example, because they always say this one especially, when they lose their teeth.
Like Wendy from Breaking Bad.
Yeah, and it wasn't like that. It was like she had ground down her teeth. They were like tiny, hardly, I mean, you could hardly see any teeth. And it just like, I can't get over the image. So I don't know if that was real or not. And I just can't imagine living like that. It must have been miserable. So anyway, but she was good.
I was more miserable watching the movie, so.
Well, I'm talking about her and her personal life.
Well, I thought you said we weren't supposed to talk about anything personal, Safi.
I can't imagine it. Well, why would anybody bring that into a character where they'd spent their a lot of time grinding their teeth down to nothing?
Well, and then Shia LaBeouf, for some reason, he had one of his teeth taken out for Fury. For some reason, he thought that a good part of his character would be to have a tooth missing. So he purposefully had a tooth removed for Fury.
That's weird.
Which was stupid, because I didn't even notice that until they talked about it after the movie. So it was a complete waste of time to do that. Completely unnecessary. But one of the clues as to how bad this movie is there's this one part where they're walking, and by walking I mean you can tell it's very hard to walk for them. It's very hard. They probably had to take lots of breaks.
Well, they were wearing high heels.
Eat lots of snacks.
High heels and mini dresses.
And so they're walking through this green area, and in the background you hear mowing. And conveniently we hear someone outside mowing right now, somewhere else around here. And so that's a sound issue, because there's a lot of sound problems in this movie to where you can't understand what people say. It was so bad to where I had to turn on the subtitles.
Yeah, we just watched a movie like that, but it was like a particular person in a particular room. This thing was
everywhere,
all over the place. The sound problem where, I mean, you could not hear the person talking at all. It was like they were almost like they were whispering, because it was so hard to hear. And that thing with the mower, for us, it's a racetrack. It's Saturday and they're racing.
No, someone's mowing too.
That's the racetrack. I can hear the announcer.
No, there's mowing over in that direction, Safi.
Okay, whatever.
And so they're walking through this area and somebody is mowing.
Really close by.
That was already a problem, because why couldn't they just wait until the person stopped mowing and then quickly do the shot?
Well, I think it has to do with the lighting.
Number two, well, they didn't really do much lighting in this movie, Safi, unless there was some sort of a inept, mentally handicapped lighting person who doesn't even know what lighting is. So then they walk into the second area, which is connected to the first area, and it's like very close by. And then they walk into that area, and we don't hear any mowing at all. Any mowing at all. So it's like, that's inconsistent, continuity error. All they had to do was either wait for the first section for the mowing to stop, or record the mowing sound in the first area and add it into the second area. That's all they had to do. And they were so lazy that they couldn't even do that, Safi.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Because that isn't anything real difficult to deal with.
That's just one example of many examples. And then they're in the car for a million years, and it's just them talking and talking and talking about, like, oh, we committed robberies in the past. We're such bad people. Like, remember that one woman whose car we stole, and we're really upset about that. But the thing is that's all you needed. You didn't have to show it. But then, to fill up the runtime so that they can advertise the terrible music, they then had this whole 10-minute sequence where this woman picks them up. She thinks they're a singing group, and it's totally unnecessary, and it was not needed. And there was so much stuff in the movie that was not needed. There was so much unnecessary, this movie was a disaster, Safi.
Well, they probably, if they hadn't put in that extra stuff, they probably would have pared it down to 30 minutes.
Yeah, it would have been a short movie for sure.
Very short.
Yeah. So, what else is there to say, Safi? Well,
nothing. Well, at the end, that's where the story really picks up, and
let's also talk about most of the movie is green screened, but then there are these scenes where they're in real places, and the parts where they're in real places always looked better than the parts where they were green screened. Like, there was this part where Deandra took the model guy, who's a terrible actor. Everyone was pretty terrible, except for the main girl's sister and the news reporting woman, Marcy Rice, which they named her Marcy Rice because she's white like rice. And it's too bad that she wasn't the leading lady, because she's a much better actress. And, that would have just been nice. Like if she had said, I've starred in a million movies now, a million music videos. I'm going to let this talented actress star in this one, and then I'll be the newscaster.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would have been like a sign of like, okay, you don't have to star in everything you do, unless it's needed, unless you don't have the resources to get an actor to be in your film or something like that. Because I'm sure if we complained and this person saw it, she would just make up a bunch of needless excuses. But there's this one scene where she took her model boyfriend into a bedroom, and the bedroom looked very good. It had like this pointy ceiling, and it looked very old school, very silent movie-esque type of room. And it's too bad, because if they had just filmed the whole movie in real locations like normal people, normal filmmakers, then the movie would have been much better off. Safi? Don't you agree? I mean, what do you have to say? I mean, everything in this movie was green screen.
Down the movie. Well, they also did this thing where the cop, who I don't even know, I guess he was the cop for the area, but they showed him right away, and they were in another area.
Oh, yeah.
And they filmed him driving, in his cop uniform, in front of a background of, like a street. And Marco said that was green screen, and it didn't look good. It looked
the whole movie didn't look good for the most part.
I've seen a lot of older shows and movies, really old, 60s, that did a better job with this. So, where they weren't really driving, but they filmed them against a film of, scenery. Like they were driving down, like in the country, they would show a country scenery. Or they were driving around a cliff face, because you think they're going to go, because something is happening, you think they're going to go over the cliff and fall to their deaths. But they did a lot better job with this kind of effect. And this one just looks so fake. And the actor who they showed the most against this kind of imagery,
the cop,
he was terrible. He looked good, but you could hardly hear him. He was one of those, and throughout the movie, there was never a time when he was speaking that he talked normally. You could hear him.
They did this effect where he was like standing outside a window, looking in, and it looked so incredibly fake. And all I could think of was like, this has to be like a joke, because what kind of a lazy filmmaker can't get someone to stand in front of a fucking window, Safi? I mean, how hard is that to do?
I don't know. It looked terrible. It really, I've never seen anything like that. Not for that kind of a vision.
And you guys know that's bad when Safi says, I've never seen anything like that.
I haven't seen a lot of movies, but it just didn't look good. And I think, like, I don't know, the Waltons, Andy Griffith, they showed this thing where and Lucy, the Lucy show, Lucy and Desi.
Yeah.
And they showed them, quote, driving. That's
an old school type of effect.
Well, I know that. Why didn't they just use that? It'd be cheaper. Wouldn't it?
It would have been a lot cheaper, Safi. It would have been a lot easier, too.
Probably, and it would look better.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you want your movie to look as good as it could on a limited budget?
It is a little complicated, because the trick is always with green screen anything is that you have to match the lighting for everything. Mm. So you have to have lighting to match the projected background, which still it looks very good. Like if you watch like even later movies that did it, like Alfred Hitchcock's last movie, Family Plot, there was this whole driving sequence where their car goes out of control because it was sabotaged, and it looks very real. With the old movies, what they would do is they would get a real car, and then they would have a projection of what was happening in the background on like a screen all around.
Right.
But they'd have to match the lighting to make it look like they're in the projected footage. And the problem is with this movie is that they didn't match the lighting or do practically anything but paste the background in the back, and that's it. And the problem is that everything looks unnatural and fake and phony. And it seems like since this woman deletes people's reviews, it seems like she doesn't even care. Like, she's so lazy, she's so unprofessional, she's so thoughtless, she brags on her posters and her credits. I worked with the Actors Union. I was involved with the union. And it's like, who cares about the stupid union? Like, what? Like, who cares about, like, so what? You worked with a union. Boo-hoo. Like, that you're not special because you worked with an actors union. Like, what was it? The extra large actors union?
Marco, I said to not do that.
Safi, you started it.
It doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the movie.
It does, because
it's like she doesn't know how to make movies.
She doesn't care.
Even if she doesn't get involved in the actual, like, photography and these effects and anything else, the color, anything.
It's like she doesn't respect filmmaking.
I don't know. Well, it's like, you said this last night too. It's like one big selfie.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
It's one big self-advertisement.
And she is a musician, and she was advertising her music, and she featured it prominently.
Her music sucks.
Well, that's your opinion, and it's probably many other opinion of people too. But she...
that's just your version of saying it sucks.
But anyway, you know what taking a selfie is like. That's what the movie was like. It was like one big selfie. Didn't they have a movie called Selfie or something? And it was terrible?
Yeah, I believe so. But, well, here's the thing, too. Like,
of course, that was a regular movie.
We've talked about how, like, The Room... people have said that guy is egotistical, he's narcissistic because he stars in it. People have talked about Neil Breen, Fateful Findings, that type of filmmaking, how it's just all about him. But the thing is that I really kind of disagree with those, because when you look at those, they're so much better than this. Like, this is what people should say is like narcissistic filmmaking. This is the gold standard here for that type of filmmaking, because it's like everything in the movie practically revolves around her. Even the ending, where it's like you'd think that it would be like, I don't know, like something interesting would happen, because I thought it sounded like it could at least be fun, where this group of bad guys robbed the wrong house, kind of like Better Call Saul, and then they get trapped in there, and somebody said it's like Saw, and so I thought, oh, that ought to be a lot of fun, like on a small budget. You could have a lot of fun effects, a lot of gore, a lot of fun stuff with that. But instead, the ending is almost even worse, because what happens is this guy gets on a screen, and he looks like a gangsta Santa Claus, and he is like joking around with them, like he does all these puns, these terrible jokes, terrible puns, and it's like, this is the movie? Like, this is what we're watching?
Well, should we tell them who it was?
Well, it was the cop or the cop's brother or something, and they're like
his twin brother
working together with the main woman, and then the main woman kills him, and then she lets her whole crew die because the whole time the plan was for her to just get everything and go off and be a successful musician. But oh wait, she had a twin sister too, and her twin sister kills her and then takes all the fame and credit, and now she's a famous singer with her terrible music. So that's the story. And it's like they couldn't even do that right. Like, they couldn't even have it where, like, the cliche plot where the bad guys take on the wrong person. Yeah. Like in Nobody, where those guys underestimate the main guy constantly. What else, Safi?
I don't know.
Well, even like Wood Chipper Massacre, where that cousin comes and he thinks, oh, I'm just going to shake down this stupid, weak little family, and then they put him in the fucking wood chipper where he belongs. You know, that plot is such a fun plot, and it when it's done well, it can be really good. But this was not doing that plot well. This was embarrassing. It was miserable. You know, they had this thing where one of them, she got a bomb attached to her, and then at the end, it blows up with this terrible computer-generated effect, and it doesn't even blow up anything in the house. It just blows up her in the bed. So that was really bad. Just, ugh. God, Safi.
Yeah.
What were you thinking here with this movie?
I don't know. It's just each person. I'm trying to think.
Really?
Except for the couple, and that was the main girl and the guy, were killed individually. The sister was, I don't know what happened to her. She was stabbed.
The sister?
Yeah, you said she had her sister, the one that had the bad teeth.
No, the sister quit the gang, and she just went home.
Yeah, but she came back to get her. They took her stuff, and she wanted it back. Remember?
No, she never came back. She was just at home, and then remember at the end she saw on the news that they were going to get caught, and then she said, yeah, take that. And that was the end for her. You know, she was just safe at home because she quit the group like a good girl.
Okay, who's the girl in the bathtub then?
I don't know. I can't even remember. Like, it was
remember.
just...
There was I thought she came to that house. She had on a jacket, and she had on those weird glasses, you know, part of her robbery disguise. Oh, nice. Tiger. Or no. Yeah, tiger butterfly. Anyway, and they took my stuff, and I'm really mad about it. And she's walking up the stairs, and the bad guy is kind of following her. But, I mean, it seemed like he was getting revenge for bad things happening. It's like for stealing, like you stole this and you're going to get punished for it.
Yeah, it seemed like, okay, this is a typical plot, but then, oh no.
But she was gone. Because she had left the car a long time before that, before they even got to this, quote, bad house. And she was gone, so I don't know why he decided to, whatever he did, she was in the bathroom and he killed her.
And then there was this part at the beginning.
Throat.
There was this part at the beginning where they made this joke in the car where they said, you know, the sister looks a lot like you, wink, wink. And it's like, okay, that was just terrible. Like, why did you have to do that? Like, it was so stupid and unnecessary. Like, yeah, I could tell that they were probably related by looking at them. Like, you didn't have to have, like, a line about it. And the fact that they're this gang of thieves that have been working together for a long time, and they're infamous, and then now, all of a sudden, they discuss that they look alike. Like, that's kind of weird. What did you think of that, Safi?
I didn't understand that at all. I thought it was like a distraction. You know, it wasn't anything that contributed to the value of the movie. Like I said, if they want to make a movie, and it wasn't going to be real good anyway. It wasn't going to be some quote masterpiece, but at least some of the little problems it had, like with the green screening, for example, if they had just done some of the little things that you do in making a movie, if they had done it right, it wouldn't have been so jagged and terrible.
Yeah, it would have helped the movie be more enjoyable, even though it's still trash.
Yeah, and there was also that part with the sound. You can't hear somebody speaking, then, and you have to, and like Marco said, he turned up the volume, but he also put these subtitles, English subtitles.
I had to do both.
Up on the right.
I turned the volume to 80 out of 100.
I mean, we're not deaf, and why he had to do that is kind of weird.
Yeah.
And just if you had fixed some of these other issues, instead of having this, I mean, I think that would turn people off a lot, no matter who was in the movie and how good it was. I think it would turn them off a lot, especially at the movie theater, or where they couldn't hear some of the parts.
And they did screen this movie on the big screen, Safi. That's another weird thing. Yeah, after they did those interviews, because she said, I'm excited to see the movie on the big screen. And it's like, wow. I hope they were able to hear it. I hope they were able to understand what people said in the movie, because I couldn't.
No, there was a couple of times where you could not hear them at all.
Yeah.
It was like they were whispering, but they weren't whispering. It was because they had the volume or something turned down.
And speaking of voices, there was this really weird subplot about the tech geek guy, and about how, like, he had multiple personality disorder or something. And there was this one really cringy, hilarious part where he was saying, like, shh, they're not ready to know about you yet. They're not ready to know about the others. And then he just did this pause and he looked around, like, it was like, God, what were they thinking? Like, I guess I would say he was entertaining, even though he was bad, the tech guy. So you had him, the news reporter woman, she would come on once in a while. She was the only one who seemed like a legitimate actor, who seemed like someone who, was actually wanting to be an actress. Everyone else seemed like maybe they were her friends just doing her a favor. But even friends who do favors are better actors than these people. Like, it was ridiculous. It was so unentertaining, if that's even a thing. Like, I was like, God, this is horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And it's like, I think if people watch this movie, though, they can see anyone can make a movie. And if you just put a little tiny bit of effort into making that movie, it will automatically be way better than this. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, come on, Safi. So what would you rate this in terms of food? In
terms of food?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I think I'd give it one of these fast food, either Wendy's or McDonald's. They're singles. They're single burger with nothing on it. And
ew.
And I'm talking about any like condiments or vegetables, lettuce, tomato, and I don't care for onions, so I'm not going to say that. And it's just awful, because you're expecting, it's a movie, so you compare that to like a hamburger, okay? All movies are like hamburgers, but there's certain things that they add to them, like the basic ingredients. For example, I call them the basics, like I think tomato and lettuce. I know people like to put onions on, ew. And, pickle. And then the condiments, ketchup and mustard, that's like a basic burger. And if you're missing that and all you have is just the burger, which they're flat, they're like smashed flat and on a bun, and there's nothing else, that's like this movie. You know, it's a movie, or really a selfie movie, and there's nothing of value, or a little bit of value even, to like it. And that would be my, I guess I would give it a D- if you wanted to know what like a letter grade, but basically a nothing burger. And people have said that about other things in the news lately, but it is a great description. Just call it a nothing burger. That's what the movie is. It's a nothing burger.
Well, I would disagree. I would say it was like something that was very, very sloppy and greasy and gross. Like something very, very haphazardly put together by people who don't know how to make food. It reminded me a lot of the food that I got on my birthday last year at Outback Steakhouse.
I told Marco that it was not going to be good.
I wanted to have...
He wouldn't listen.
I wanted to have...
Nobody wanted that.
I wanted to have Australian food, and then we were supposed to do a drunk commentary of a funny Australian movie. Safi ruined that because she wasn't paying attention to the movie. And so then we watched Titanic! Remember that, Safi?
Yeah.
Remember Titanic? You got to see that woman walk around naked the whole movie. What'd you think of that movie, Safi?
Is that the one with the metalhead woman?
Yeah.
I thought it was a interesting, creative story. It just didn't, it wasn't finished.
Titanic!
They were presenting it as such. But if they had finished it like it was a Stephen King movie or something, because it was a horror movie, and it was horror. It really was.
Well, the food that I got for my birthday was horror to the nth degree. I got what was called on Outback Steakhouse's menu the Jammin' Meatloaf. And I thought it would be good. I thought it would be like a fun meatloaf with some spicy sauce on it. And they said that it came with crazy fries, like these fries with like a bunch of cheese and sauces on it. And then I got asparagus. And it was just so gross. It's indescribably bad. I posted a picture of it on another channel with a video talking about the food. I posted a picture there if you want to see it. But it was so disgusting. It's probably one of the grossest meals I've ever had. And it was just a bunch of random shit put on a plate. And I thought, like, oh, should not have paid for this. Or should ask for our money back. And then Safi said, we can't do that. You know, she has this weird thing where restaurants do bad things, and then she doesn't want to complain.
Well, we live a million miles away, and there's no way they could ever do anything about it.
Because she says,
there's not going to be
other people will complain for us. And it's like, okay, Safi, you're...
Well, it would never be of value, I don't think, because we went to this place, not this particular restaurant, but we went to this another one of these in Columbus on the western side in a huge suburb, and it was just the same. It was terrible.
We could have gotten our money back and gotten something better regardless of what it was. Anything would have been better, Safi, and you know that. It was horrible. It was a disaster.
We warned you, and you didn't listen.
It was disgusting. So I didn't even basically have any dinner. I just had cake. And I had this alcohol that I got from Chili's. Which that was another thing. Is I discovered Outback won't let you get Australian alcoholic drinks carry out. You can't do that.
Can't get any alcohol carry out.
So we had to go all the way to Chili's to get alcohol.
Which was actually closer to where we lived than the other place.
And the alcohol was pretty good. It tasted pretty good. It was a berry seltzer, and it was okay. It was just, God, Safi, don't ever do that again, ever.
I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't want to go, and your father did not want to go, and you insisted.
Oh, your mama wanted to go, though.
Okay.
So that was really unfortunate, and that was this movie. It was just a complete disappointment. It was a complete disaster. It's a shameful movie. It's embarrassing. It's miserable. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. I wouldn't even want to call it a movie, because I think movie makers deserve more credit than that. So, Safi, what should people do?
Well, if you like this video, you could take some of the BS, give it a like, press the like button, and if you would like to become one of our subscribers and make comments about the movie, if you've seen it, or you would like to see it, to see what we're talking about, if you didn't quite understand or believe what we said, press this, come on down and become one of our subscribers. So that's it, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.